What's up, y'all? I recently played one of my chess idols. Grandmaster Wang Yue is a super GM. He's 2700. Well, now he's 2660, but he used to be like 2750. I remember growing up and studying his chess games in magazines, and I studied them voraciously. And recently, I got paired against him on chess.com. We played a long match. He walloped me, frankly. He would win 2 games, I would win 1. He'd win 2, I would win 1. The final score was 10-5, and that's not particularly good, but I do have a treat for y'all. I did play the bird against him. I played it all 5 times. Every single time I got a decent position, maybe so-so, maybe good. The 5th game, though, I got a fantastic position, and what you're about to witness is a steamroll. So, going through this match, I just was summarily getting destroyed. My bird was getting good positions, but he hadn't yet felt the eagle's claws. So, of course, I start with f4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, e3, g6, and c4. Honestly, thinking back about my variations in my bird course, I think I'm supposed to play b3 here, because now after something like c5, I get a bit of a worse position. Takes. My structure looks a bit ugly. It's sort of like my pawns have had their back broken, and now they're just a paraplegic, and they don't really have any way to make use of their structure. So anyway, he responds c6. He doesn't know exactly what to do in the bird theory, and that's understandable because most super GMs don't spend 10 hours a day studying the bird. So knight c3, bishop g7, bishop e2, castles, bishop g4, and I get a good stake in the center now. d4. Look at this strong center. f4, e3, d4, c4. I'm fighting for all these squares. c5, d5, e5, e4, g5. And yeah, this is a fantastic position. Objectively, it's probably close to level, but who cares? Just don't tell the super GM that. Knight bd7. And here in these positions I had been taking, and he'd been taking, and I'd been playing queen b3. The position was interesting. He often would put his queen on b6, and somehow I wouldn't be able to make use of anything. I think in this exact position I have knight takes d5 tricks, because if he takes, I can net a pawn, and if he trades my queen, I can get my knight to safety with something like trading, and then taken back on b3. But of course, instead, he played knight takes d5. He really fanned the flame of the inferno here, because now, you know, I always tell my students this: if they don't have a d-pawn, you push that e-pawn. e4, knight takes, pawn takes, and look at this beautiful center. It's just getting better and better. He didn't want to do this. He didn't want to give me the b to c capture, and so he held back. He's keeping steady. Steady hands, as they say. But look at the pieces. These pawns are just dominating everything. These pawns are dominating. I didn't even know I could make green on this keyboard. But anyway, we got the green meadow here, as I like to call it. We got that control of the entire 5th rank. Meanwhile, black's pawns are terrible. These pawns are on the 6th rank. That's his 3rd rank. And look at these. They're pathetic. This is really awful. So we got an enormous amount of space, and this is what I love about the bird. These normal players will always, you know, they'll adopt a super hyper-modern approach. They won't push any pawns in the center. They'll scope them out from far away. Meanwhile, we just take the full center. We got this good pawn on f4. Everything starts to make sense. And lo and behold, this has turned into a Grunfeld defense, except with an extra pawn on f4, meaning it's going to be very easy to bury all of their pieces with e5 now. So bishop e3, knight f6. He's just dawdling. He really has nothing to do. When you're playing against space like this, you have to just immediately like punch through and break through and get some type of pawn break, because otherwise the pieces are just going to suffer too much. So he should be playing f5, e5, or c5. Unfortunately, though, none of that works. c5 is met with d5. e5, I'm just going to chop. I'm happy with that. Meanwhile, f5, I can just play e5 and bury this piece, and also knight g5 to e6 is becoming a bit of a bummer. So bishop e3, knight f6. I play h3, I'm taking that bishop pair. I'm going all the way to the bank with that one. Bishop takes. He plays queen d7. I swing my queen to b3. And notice just how healthy my pawns are. They really don't deserve a red color. They deserve blue. Or a tinted gold. Beautiful golden center here. All 3 pawns healthy. I'm going to play rook d1, rook c1. Bury down the d file and just, you know, take the win. So rook d8, rook d1, knight e8. My opponent wants to play knight d6. Already here I was thinking of burying the bishop with e5, but the thing is then the knight is going to, you know, sneak around to this square on c7 and d5, and I don't want that. You got to keep everything steady. Steady hands. So I play a4. I'm hassling this knight. I'm going to play a5 and kick the knight out, and only when all of his knights have been kicked away from this d5 square, then will I play e5 for the finale. So now already in this position, what is he going to do? If I play a5, he has to go back to c8. That's not a good knight. No one's ever heard of a good knight being on c8. So instead he plays queen c7. He's clearing the d7 square out. I play a5, knight d7, and now finally everything gets buried in his position. This is really beautiful. This is stunning. I think my editor was telling me that I need to put a portrait back behind me, you know, just to fill the room out a bit. We're also going to get a rug to really bring the room together. And in this position, I just want to take a photo of this and put it up on my wall because this is pure art. Look at this. Knights are completely buried here. Both knights are completely dominated by these pawns. Meanwhile, bishop is also buried. Knight is blocking the rook. There's literally not a single piece in black's position that is good here. He plays e6. He's trying to stop me from going for the final assault with d5. If I'm able to play d5 correctly here, the game is just going to be over. I swing my rook to c1 now. Tactics are starting to line up. He plays a6. He really didn't have much of a choice here. I'm going to play a6 to completely undermine this diagonal here. He plays a6, and now I break through. I really like this because this is an important lesson for all y'all at home watching. Get your notebooks out, get your pencils, get your crayons, and get your rulers, because it's about to be class time right here. In this position, you know, if we just dawdle around, if we don't break through immediately, your opponent is going to be able to set up a much better defense. This knight is eventually going to come around to d5. You know, the rooks could eventually double on the d-file. He's still worse. There's no way he's going to be good. I was thinking about this knight, and this knight is really a tragic comedy. This knight is like the jester on the chessboard. It can only go between b8 and f8, and it's just going to be going back and forth forever, like a one-track pony. So anyway, so here, I just play d5. I break through. I'm not giving him any time. I know the Chinese school of chess and how they play super precise. They defend very hard, very strong, and so you can't let them out of your grasp when you have them on the run. He takes. Fantastic move. He was getting completely destroyed otherwise. If he takes, I take here. Queen b8, check. King f8, queen a3. Look at this. Look at this, guys. It's over. It's completely over. What is he going to do here? There are like a million different discovery checks here. Anyway, so that's why he didn't go for that. Instead, he made a very instructive move here. He realized, you know, that the game is completely over if he does not fight or muddy the water somehow. And so he just sacks the piece. He's really hoping for it. I'm taken. He takes. And now the thing is his decision would have been completely sound. If I have to defend like this, he gets a third pawn. If I take here, you know, he's coming here, he's taking. All of a sudden now his knight is finally able to come out because he got this enormous thorn of a pawn here on e5 out of the way. And, you know, maybe I'm still better, but it really ain't that clear. It's a murky position. It's the type of position Rambo would like. So instead, I cannot let him out of my grasp. Whenever you're playing a GM, a super GM, and you're playing the bird, you cannot let him out of the eagle's claws. Bishop b6. He could take the pawn, but only at the price of a rook. He doesn't really have a choice, though. If he defends the rook, I'm just going to take. His pawns are ruined. Bishop g4. Rook e1 is coming. And splat. The tomato on e6 is going to fall. So he takes. I play rook e1 first, getting a tempo on the queen. Queen g3. Takes. At this point now, the game is just over. He really didn't. I think that every super GM and every GM in general has this sort of pride about them, and they can't lose to the bird. It's just something ingrained in their DNA that they just feel an enormous amount of shame by losing to the bird. And so for that reason, that's why I think he played on, because this position is of course beyond resignable here. I take. Now he only has 2 pawns for the rook. Knight d6 takes. Of course, I should mention, you know, with all my pawns on light squares and my bishop on light squares, my dark squares are a bit, you know, a bit risky, a bit murky. But at the same time, if he checks, if he does something like checking and going back, I can always just sack my rook. I'm up so much material that, you know, it's Christmas time. I'll give him something back. He plays knight f5. I just trade the rooks. Takes, bishop f8, bishop d5. In this position, my opponent resigned. This game was the world to me. This game was awesome. This is a guy that I've really looked up to, and to beat him with the quintessential bird, that was just incredible. Again, to be clear, he did beat me the rest of the match. He beat me 10-5, but really interesting game. I'm really happy because this was a beautiful showcase of the bird. the way it can dominate, the way the center can just all of a sudden explode, and you have this enormous pawn center with pawns on d4, e4, and f4. So yeah, this was an awesome moment. I hope eventually to get some even stronger scalps like those of Magnus, Hikaru, all those big boys. But at the same time, this guy's a super GM. This guy was ranked number 8 in the world at one point. Extremely strong player, and for that reason, I just felt I had to share this with you guys. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.